Welcome to the Brain Over Binge podcast, where you learn a simple, brain-based approach to ending binge eating. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kathryn Hansen. I'm the author of Brain Over Binge and the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide. Today I'm continuing the series on healing your relationship with food, yourself, and others. This is part 3, and if you haven't listened yet to part 1 and part 2, I'll link those episodes in the show description. And those episodes were 171 and 175. In the first 2 episodes, I talked about how binge eating and restrictive food behaviors interfere with relationships in many ways. They isolate you from others and from your own needs and your ability to care for yourself. I helped you explore the many ways that issues with relationships could be intertwined with your eating disorder. And I also addressed how it's very important to separate your ability to improve relationships from your ability to avoid binge eating. You want to set yourself up to be binge-free no matter how well or how poorly relationships are going, because binging is never the solution to relationship issues. I also talked about how stopping binging, or even making progress in recovery so that food starts to take up less of your time, energy, and mental capacity, how this starts to create space for more connection in your life and more space to focus on addressing and healing relationship issues, whether that's with yourself or with others. And that will be my primary focus for this episode. Now, as I've discussed mostly in part 1 of this series, if your relationship with food is still consuming you, it's going to feel really hard to heal other relationships because you're still in that survival mode. So it's very important to focus on getting to a more stable place with food. And we have many resources to help you do that, including one-on-one coaching with me or Coach Julie, or the group, or my books or course. And you can learn more about those resources in the show description. So with that being said, this episode is mostly directed toward people who are binge-free or on their way to becoming binge-free. But regardless of where you are in recovery, the idea still could be useful to you in a way that's safe and that feels doable for you right now. Before I dive in further, I want to mention that my next episode of this series will be a Q&A episode, where I'll address questions that were submitted to me about this podcast series. I sent out an email request for people to send me their relationship-related questions, and I got a huge response. And I truly apologize that I was not able to get back to everyone who emailed me, but I want everyone who responded to know that I received your question or concern, and I really appreciate your vulnerability and your contribution to this conversation. If today's episode doesn't address your issue, know that I'll do my best in the Q&A episode, which will be part 4, to get to most of the questions, or at least get to the basic themes that came up in the questions. And I will of course keep all questions and any identifying information completely anonymous. If you want to get on my email list for communications like this and for my newsletter, updates, and helpful recovery information, you can do that by entering your email to get the free inspiration booklet, which is in the show description. So although this is not the relationship Q&A episode, I do want to start this discussion with a question that came up on my Q&A call with the Brain Over Binge group a couple of months ago, because I thought it was a really important question and I thought it could serve as a sort of guidepost for the rest of this episode. The question was basically this: I've been binging and obsessed with food for so long that I don't know where to start in learning how to have a friend or be a friend. You may be feeling this way as well, and it's also very common to feel this way when it comes to your relationship with yourself, like you don't know where to start in learning to be a friend to yourself. I'm going to use a lot of the advice that I shared on the group call and add to it in order to address this overarching question of how to start learning these skills of being a friend to yourself and to others. And this can also apply to being a partner, a family member, a coworker, or really navigating any other relationship. I want you to always begin with compassion toward yourself and toward any friends or other relationships you may have lost or not nurtured along the way. It's the eating disorder that has taken this away from you. It was not your intention to neglect relationships or not form them in the first place. Beating yourself up does not help at all, so any amount of self-compassion you can direct toward yourself is a great first step. Next, I want you to develop a mindset of patience as you learn these new skills. If you're more isolated right now, you likely will not wake up tomorrow with a fulfilling social life and a great relationship with yourself. You could have been trapped in these eating issues from a very young age, and maybe you never got a chance to develop these skills. So be very kind and gentle with yourself along the way. Think of it like picking up a musical instrument or sport. You would never expect yourself to be perfect right away. You would start with the basics and then gradually work your way up to more advanced skills. Once you have that self-compassion and patience, you can start taking some steps toward healing your relationships. Depending on where you are now, here are some ideas about how to start this healing process. You can take what resonates with you and what you feel ready for, and also use it as inspiration to think of your own ideas too. A great way to start is just to begin to notice the good in your own life and within yourself, whatever that may be. This suggestion doesn't actually involve creating anything new right now, but just noticing what's already there. Yes, binge eating may have taken a lot away from you, but there is still good in your life. As you go through your day, make an effort to notice even very small joys and pleasures, whether that involves others in your life or within yourself. Notice moments when you have a positive emotion, when you think a positive thought about yourself or your abilities, when you notice a good smell, a food that tastes great, a comfortable outfit, a beautiful sight in nature, a peaceful place in your home, possibly a piece of art or music, someone who smiles at you, a funny joke, a good conversation with a family member or someone else in your life. Urges to binge have a way of telling us that nothing is good and nothing is exciting, so you might as well go back to binging. So please be aware that this thought may come up and be prepared to dismiss that thought. You would never tell someone else that binge eating is the solution to a lack of enjoyment or pleasure in their life. You would instead suggest for the person to start to find and cultivate the good, instead of returning to something that is always harmful and always painful. This leads me to the absolute best way you can be a friend to yourself now and through the rest of your life, and that is to give yourself the gift of not binging. Even if other things feel a little flat right now, which is common as dopamine and those pleasure pathways are regulating, when you make binging not an option, you can keep moving toward real solutions to whatever you need to heal within yourself or within your relationships. Part of looking for the good you already have in your life is to focus on the connections you do already have with other people. Most binge eaters are not completely isolated. Most have family and friends and/or partners, coworkers, and acquaintances. Look for the good in those relationships, even if it's just with one person. Really notice the qualities that you enjoy being around. Notice the good feelings you have when you're with certain people, and savor that. Also notice the qualities you exhibit around others that make you feel good about yourself. For example, when you make someone laugh, or give to people you care about, or share a mutual interest, or even express an opinion or set a boundary. This idea of looking for the good is something that Coach Julie and I addressed on one of our podcast episodes. The episode is 105 and it's titled Taking in the Good, and I've linked it in the show description. Taking in the good is a research strategy from Dr. Rick Hansen, and the strategy grows your ability to experience and increase happiness in your own life and also override that negativity bias of the brain. If you look for the good within yourself and others, you will find it. And the more you find it, the more you can grow those good qualities and bring more good into your life. The next step after noticing what is already in your life is to explore what you may want to bring into your life in terms of relationships or ways to improve yourself. What connections with others do you want to nurture? Are there people already in your life that you want to make an effort to communicate with more or spend more time with? Are there people that you've lost touch with that you want to reconnect with? Also, what ways do you want to improve how you care for yourself? Do you need to release some of the pressure and perfectionism you put on yourself? Do you need to add a self-care ritual, even if it's just for a few minutes per day? Do you want to spend more time in nature, or do you want to add a meditation practice? Do you need some positive daily affirmations to remind yourself that you're worthy and you deserve self-care and care from others? Are there completely new relationships you want to think about bringing into your life? If so, what are some small steps you can take toward that goal? Do you want friends with similar interests? You can usually find local groups that connect over shared hobbies, or maybe there are some classes you could take. You can start really small here. Brainstorm about the places where the people with the qualities you're looking for in a friend might be. Is it at church, at the gym, museums, concerts, farmers markets, coffee shops? Challenge yourself to go to the places where you feel good. And then the chances are, if you feel good in those places, others you may want to connect with will likely be there too. And even if you don't talk to anyone right away, you can still build that healthy relationship with yourself by putting yourself in places that inspire you and give you a sense of joy and purpose. Know that this is not easy for anyone, with or without a history of an eating disorder, especially as you get older and there aren't as many natural opportunities to make new friends like there was in school. So give yourself some grace here if you don't find new connections right away. You can start with the most simple actions like a smile or a wave, and then gain more confidence over time. It's all about exploring and experimenting and adapting depending on what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And of course, always being patient and compassionate with yourself along the way. The next step, and these really aren't steps but more like suggestions, is repairing, rebuilding, or setting boundaries in relationships that were affected by the eating disorder or that are intertwined with the eating disorder. If there are relationships that you neglected, know that repair doesn't always have to mean sharing a lot right away. It could be as simple as a text that says, "Hey, I've missed you." Or maybe making time to meet someone for coffee without needing to over-explain yourself, or just explaining whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Start with the people who feel very safe and easy for you to reconnect with and who serve as positive influences. You definitely don't have to reconnect with everyone, especially if certain people introduce some toxic elements to your life as far as focusing on appearance or weight or dieting. I do realize that some of those relationships with toxic elements may not be ones you can fully avoid right now, and maybe you can't avoid them much at all. For various reasons, you may not be able to get out of living situations or relationships right away. And this is why it's so important to know that you can avoid binge eating no matter what. Don't put pressure on yourself to make big, sudden moves or change things significantly. You can give yourself some time to process and adapt to your binge-free life and work on learning what you truly want and need, because you may have been out of touch with that for quite a while during the time that you were distracted with the eating disorder. Not changing anything right away also has some benefits, unless, of course, there's something abusive going on, and in that case, it's your absolute priority to get yourself to safety, which I addressed in part 2 of this series. But assuming none of that is going on, when you keep things pretty much the same, but you don't binge anymore, it really shows you that it was never your life or your relationships that were causing the binges. This was something that was such a powerful lesson for me when I recovered 20 years ago. After I stopped acting on my urges, I had this mindset of, wow, this is amazing. I can have all of these problems and still not binge. I can be depressed and anxious and still not binge. I can be lonely, I can be sad, I can be confused, I can have poor self-esteem, I can have relationship conflicts, and still not binge. It was truly wonderful, and I believe that mindset of almost wanting to experience the negative feelings so that I could prove to myself that I didn't need to binge, I think this was highly protective in preventing me from ever returning to the habit. And it allowed me to completely disassociate my binge eating from my emotions and my relationships and other problems in my life. It's not that I didn't face any of my feelings or problems or try to find ways to deal with them during that time. It's just that I really didn't change very much in my life. And I didn't hinge my eating disorder recovery on how well I dealt with issues in relationships or within myself. But looking back, even though that mindset was very protective as far as not going back to binging, I think it may have actually held me back a little bit in terms of my own personal growth. I was so excited to be done with the eating disorder that I think that it may have made me minimize or gloss over some of the ways that being in that dark place of binging for so long had affected me. And it might have kept me from really looking at what the eating disorder had taken from me and what skills I did not develop in my life because my eating disorder consumed me for many of my teenage and young adult years. There was a reality that needed to be faced that I had wasted a lot of time. And I had made some bad decisions based on how badly I felt about myself because of the binging. I lost people who were important to me because my binge eating took me away from love and connection. I felt like my friends that I had before the eating disorder went on without me in many ways. Not intentionally, but because I was just no longer very available, and I no longer responded much, and no longer tried to make plans or actively reached out. So I woke up from this nightmare of binging, and of course I was very excited to be done with all that, but I realized that I had become isolated in some ways, and also possibly made the wrong connections in other ways. I had an interesting example of this come up recently, shortly before I was writing this part 3 episode. I got a call from one of my old childhood friends, and she's really the only friend from my high school that I keep in touch with in any capacity today. And what she said was expressed in a much more tactful way than I'm going to say it, but she called to basically let me know that our old friend group from high school had planned a big girls' trip. And it had been in the works for a long time, and all of the plans were made, the rooms were booked, But she sort of remembered me at the last minute and wanted to reach out to apologize for not including me and then also to invite me. I thought it was amazingly sweet that even one friend from high school remembered me, even at the tail end of the planning. But I also thought it was a really good example of the residual effects of the eating disorder even today, and the ways in which I made mistakes along the way in not doing enough to reestablish connections. I did not end up going on the trip because it would have been too challenging to leave my kids so last minute, and there were absolutely no hard feelings involved, but it made me reflect a bit on the ways that I need to be a better friend even today. And it's not only eating disorders that take us away from connections. I've had a hard time with finding time for connection since having 4 kids, and also putting so much time into my work. Know that the lessons you learn from reestablishing or maintaining connections through or after an eating disorder can be valuable through the rest of your life to maintain relationships even through very difficult, stressful, or busy times. So I just want to encourage you to put some conscious effort into connection after recovery, whenever you feel ready, and in a way that feels safe for you. Because I know how easy it is to let the days and weeks and months and even years go by, and to let responsibilities take over, and to let friendships slip away or to never form. This is not to push you or to make you fear that if you don't do this now, you're going to wake up at 43 and be forgotten for a girls' trip. You're allowed to protect your energy and peace if that's what feels right to you right now. And maybe that's what felt right for me at the time too. There's no pressure here to get right back out there and start being social all of the time. This is an individual journey, and you get to decide what the next steps are. Another related shift that can happen after recovery is realizing that you're no longer the same version of yourself who chose for certain people to be in your life. And I feel like this comes up most often in terms of romantic relationships. When you're in the thick of binge eating or food or weight obsessions, you may not be in touch with who you really are and what you truly want and need in romantic relationships. You may have chosen a partner during a time when your self-worth was really low and your shame was really high. And that's rarely a good time to make clear and aligned choices about who is truly right for you or how you deserve to be treated. After recovery and adapting to being binge-free, you may look around and feel like something no longer fits. Maybe you feel like your partner does not support your growth, or maybe the relationship was built around you not being well or not being the best version of yourself. Or maybe it now just feels like you've outgrown it based on the changes you've made. There are so many ways this could play out, but know that you're not alone here. When people make major changes in their lives, like stopping a terrible habit or addiction, it's like waking up to reality after a long time of being clouded. You may come to some painful realizations, but it's important to be honest with yourself about who you are now and how the people around you fit with that new version of yourself. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong in the past. You made the best decisions you could from the place you were in, and you don't need to spend a lot of time in regret because that's not helpful. Just try to be grateful that you're now seeing things more clearly or from a different perspective, and you can start to move forward from there. If you find yourself in this situation, know that you don't have to make any sudden decisions. You can start by getting curious and asking yourself how you feel around this person now. Can you be your authentic self in this relationship as a recovered person? Or do you see the possibility that you could be your authentic self in the future if you both work on it? Does this relationship help or hinder the life you're building after recovery? Or do you see the possibility that this relationship could be a fit in your recovered life? Again, if you both work on it. You don't need all of the answers right away, but it's okay to admit to yourself that things have shifted. Give yourself permission to begin to explore what that means for your future. If the relationship can grow and adapt with you, then that's a beautiful thing. But if it can't, that does not mean recovery broke something. It means recovery made you into a healthier version of you, who can now learn to have the clarity and strength to choose what's truly right for you now. Try to see this as an opportunity and not as a crisis. When food is no longer the main struggle, you get a chance to explore all of this, even if some of it is painful. And as much as possible, I want you to see it as a way that you're growing in a positive direction. Try not to see it as something that is daunting or that you have to do perfectly, because there are no perfect decisions when it comes to relationships. You can learn to care for others, build and repair connections, while also protecting and caring for yourself. You're not broken if this feels awkward or slow. You can take all of the time you need, And just keep asking yourself what you want your life to look like and who you want beside you on that path. If you do want to talk about any of these issues in your own life, Coach Julie and I are here to help you. As I've mentioned in the previous relationship episodes, I'm now a certified relationship coach as well to help people better in this area. When you book your coaching session, if you do want to talk about relationships, just mention in the brief intake questionnaire any issues that you would like to discuss. You can either book a 20-minute laser session or a full 45-minute session with me or Coach Julie at brainoverbinge.com/1-on-1-coaching, and that link is also in the show description. The Brain Over Binge group is also a great place to get support in this area because everyone there understands what you're dealing with and faces similar struggles in their own lives. If you are interested in the group and you want to learn more and get a feel for coaching, Coach Julie is hosting a free call tomorrow, which is Saturday, May 31st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a 30-minute call that's open to everyone, and it's such a great opportunity to get your questions answered and to connect with Julie. The Zoom link for the call is in the show description, and all you need to do is click that link at the time of the call, and you'll be able to join live. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a great weekend and that you can join that call with Julie tomorrow. And as I wrap up, I want to encourage you and remind you that you have the power to change your brain and live a binge-free life. The Brain Over Binge podcast is produced and recorded by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC. All work is copyrighted by Brain Over Binge Recovery Coaching, LLC, and all rights are reserved. As a disclaimer, the hosts of the Brain Over Binge podcast are not professional counselors or licensed healthcare providers, and this podcast is not a substitute for medical advice or any form of professional therapy. Eating disorders can have serious health consequences, and you are strongly advised to seek medical attention for matters relating to your health. Please get help when you need it, and good luck on your journey.